Hi, and welcome to the Fife Property Market Update. What we're going to be covering is the market update from the 26th of March until the 1st of April. Basically, what we're going to cover today is the weekly roundup on what's driving the Fife property market, including a look at recent listings, sales coming soon, some of the shows and articles that we also covered as well. And Jim and I are going to present together this week, which is exciting for everyone,
Two for
hopefully.
one tonight.
2 for 1, that's a good way of putting it,
Yeah,
Jim.
I thought it'd be a great idea to have a discussion because obviously we're going to cover the monthly, but more importantly, we're going to cover the year. So we're going to cover the statistics for the whole year across Fife by region from the 1st of April to the 31st of March, which will be quite revealing about the whole property market over the last year as well. So I think that's actually quite important, as well as discussing some of the shows, especially Rental UK market update as well. That's quite a good one. It happened during the week. That's good statistics there. Good information as well for anybody out there buying or selling to understand. I keep getting people saying, I'm going to wait to sell my house, or I'm going to wait to buy a house because the prices are going to go down. And it's like, and I don't, these people don't understand where the dynamic is of this. You buy a house not to make money or save money. You buy a house to secure your place on the property ladder. So there's no swings and roundabouts in terms of prices going up, prices going down, because you've now hedged yourself against that and protected yourself. So you buy a house to live in order to use it as a bargaining chip to move to the next advancement or to upsize or downsize from then on. That secures your place on the property ladder. That's why you buy. So buying and selling at any point in time is a good time to buy and sell. Hopefully that'll make sense to a lot of people out there. I mean, Perry, what's your thoughts on this?
I think it definitely makes sense, Jim. At the end of the day, people generally move because of circumstance. You don't just wake up and decide that you're going to be moving property, do you? So there's something that's driving you to either upsize, move area, downsize. And
Yeah.
actually, maybe some people are out there and they think they need to be moving. And the actual truth of the matter is, they don't need to move anywhere because where they are is actually perfect. They perhaps just are not realizing that. So it's good as well just to give people a bit of an education around that as well, isn't it? Because it's not always about moving, is it?
Some people actually just get itchy feet.
They do. They do. I
And
agree with
they want to move. By the way, just like I'm not suited and booted because I'm in Spain. I'm currently sitting in. I'm going to rub it in. It's 25 degrees outside, and I'm looking a bit red.
You do look a little bit peachy, I have to say.
Yes.
But actually, although it's freezing here, Jim, we do have a lot of sunshine this evening. So it's a beautiful evening here in sunny Fife as well. So get us back on track then. So what we're going to be covering is some of the articles and the shows that we've written and also produced this week, as well as some of our podcasts. So we did the renting to shares, how to prepare your property and get the legals right. I mean, that's a big thing, Jim, isn't it? And not everyone appreciates actually what they need to do in regards to the legals when they're perhaps
Yeah, I
looking to
mean,
rent.
for people that are investors or property or landlords out there, and even letting agents as well, actually, it's quite important to understand what renting to sharers means and
Mm-hmm.
at what point, in other words, a sharer is like two people sharing possibly a two-bedroom property. Now, they both have exclusive use of each bedroom each, but they have a communal interest in the living room and also using the kitchen and the bathroom itself, unless they've got ensuite bathrooms or shower rooms. That's what sharing is all about. Now, there comes a fine line where you hit the certain numbers and the certain relationships between the people actually in the property, and then you go into HMO territory, which is house and
Mm-hmm.
mobile occupation. Now, that's what we talked about in here, and also the legalities of how to set this up correctly, how to do it properly, how to mitigate your risk. And the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of people actually put sharers into properties, but they don't make them joint and severally liable. So
Mm-hmm.
you actually end up losing out when one person moves out. It's like, well, the other person says, well, I'm not liable for that cost,
Yeah.
so I'm quite happy just to keep that place empty and for you not to earn anything at all.
It can be really quite a challenge, that one, Jim. And also, actually, some people can fall into the trap when you think, well, actually, we've known each other for years, we're mates, we'll go into this together without any kind of legality in place. And that can be quite painful exercise to learn from as
Yeah.
well, can't it?
or you take on a sharer and then ends up the sharer doesn't want to pay, and therefore the guarantor, which is maybe your guarantor, and you're left holding the proverbial baby, if that makes sense. So that's actually a really good show for people that are in that position, or even for tenants that are actually in this position as well, to understand how they should be setting this up to protect their interests with somebody that actually shares with them. So it's a good one for people to plug into. You can watch the show, Richard and I did it, and you can also listen to the podcast if you want. But the main article is on here as well, so just click on that link whenever you want.
I think what was really interesting on that was actually the numbers that came out of that article, James. I mean, what surprised me was that the demand for rental homes rose by 25% in 2022. Yeah. I mean, that's quite outstanding numbers, isn't it? It's like a huge amount of people that are now competing for property, and the competition.
The limitation of stock is just going to get less and less, and you know, and it's because basically, I talked about in there about the draconian legislation that's actually getting put in place right now by the governments. They don't understand the full dynamic and the bigger picture of how much this will impact on tenants. They actually think they're protecting tenants' interests by doing all these measures, and in actual fact, they're actually not protecting their interests at all. And I do explain that in the show. What other things have we got coming up then, Perry?
So what other things have we got coming up as well? Myself, Jim, yourself, and Richard, we also did renting versus buying in Fife, and why Fife first-time homeowners are winning the affordability battle. I think, again, that was a bit of an eye-opener for us as well when we looked at the demand there as well. And the questions on everyone's mind was, you know, is it cheaper to rent or was it cheaper to buy? And we talked about areas, and our analysis, what it revealed to us was actually in some areas of Fife.
Oh, don't tell anybody. Let them watch the show.
Well, this is a teaser.
Genuinely, if you want to know whether it's worth renting or buying or what the pros and cons are of this, read the article, watch the show, listen to the podcast. It's clearly obvious. You know, it's like night and day. But I tell you what, it depends on your personal circumstances if which category you'll fit into. And if you read the article and then you listen to the podcast, for people out there that think, I can't sit there and watch a show for the next hour or whatever it was you were doing, 45 minutes, listen to the podcast. You know, listen to it when you're, you know, sorting yourself out in the morning, listen to it when you're doing something else, listen to it while you're in the car driving to work or driving back from work. That's what podcasts are there for, to make productive use of time that you would otherwise not have utilized. So that's why we do the podcast as well. So again, you can click on that link and plug yourself into that. You know, what other things, you know, do we want to talk about monthly numbers now?
Yeah, we will do in a second. What I just wanted to say was what you commented on there, Jim, about the fact that where you can listen to your podcast. I often do that on the way to work in the morning. It's like a half an hour drive and you get brain dead radio sometimes, or you can actually listen to something that kind of educates you, grows you, or is quite informative. And it's a good way to kind of just keep the mind focused for the start of the day or the end of the day, isn't it?
I tend to do it when I've got my breakfast. So when I'm making my breakfast and preparing my breakfast, because I juice. So cold pressed juice, it does take about, you know, 20 minutes or something like that. So I tend to listen to a podcast and in the background. Sometimes Diary of a CEO is a really good one for me. There's a lot of good knowledge and expertise on there from people that have got a wealth of knowledge and expertise. It can actually teach you and you can learn something. Possibly, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And when you learn from these people, it's like, wow, I had no idea that was possible, or that you know what you did, and I never even thought of that in the first place. So it stimulates the mind and actually gets you to think. After all, if you continue to do what you're doing right now, you'll always be where you are right now. In order to move on and actually progress, and actually, if anybody wants to advance their career, you have to learn something new. This is why you go back to school. This is why you go back to university. This is why you go back to college, in order to learn something, in order to grow. So why do you not take advantage of it and do it in your day-to-day without actually having to go back? And it's really flexible because you are learning from the people who would probably tutor you anyway. It just so happens you've got some of the biggest experts in the world on these podcasts doing it. Whereas in a normal university or college environment, you've just got one person telling you the same thing over and over again every single week. So you've got a huge plethora of different people actually in their expertise in their field. So I definitely think podcasts are the way forward. But you know that yourself. There's a huge platform out there on this.
Massively so.
Okay,
Okay,
let's crack
so
on.
let's look at the numbers then, Jim. Do you want to look at the weekly numbers to start with then?
Yeah. Yep. What's your thoughts on this then? Take me through it.
So the weekly numbers, I mean, I think what was quite surprising is the uplift in what was listed last week. The previous week it was like 110 were listed, and you can see from the total here this week it's 142 with 116 sold, whereas last week it was kind of 110 and pretty much similar numbers on the sold as well. There's only maybe about 10 of a difference. So certainly supply last week has gone up substantially, as we can see. I mean, that's gone up by about 30%. So that was quite surprising for us. Interestingly enough,
that's still, remember, this is the average though. That's still, when you look at the 142, that's 7 days. That's 20 people still make a decision to buy and sell a property in Fife, and that's usually typical of the average that you would have overall right out throughout Fife. So every single day, if you're on the market right now, just take account of the fact that every single day, 20 people in Fife actually make a decision to buy and sell a house. I would say to a lot of people out there, it might take a bit longer because there is a wee bit of an oversupply compared to what it was last year in terms of the market to sell your house because of that, and there's more properties on the market available for sale. But I think it's important to recognise, though, that it only takes one person to buy your house.
correct.
And it is kind of a waiting game, and a lot of people can actually get frustrated out there and think, why is it no selling? It's like, well, it only takes one person. And that person could make a decision tomorrow to actually put their house in the market and decide to buy a house, and that could end up being your house. I think that's important to take stock of. Instantly enough, though, it's as you said, overall the number seems an oversupply in comparison to what actually is getting bought. And the previous week it wasn't that way, was it? But
no, it wasn't.
What's your thoughts on the regions, though? When you look at the regions, I mean, there's Cooper at 17 constructed, but only 8 actually sold. I mean,
It's like
that's
50%. 50%, I know.
But East Nuke's still doing very well, but 5 versus 4.
It is, but I think actually I was quite surprised that it was just 5, because there seems to be a lot of activity in the East Nuke. So it was surprising that, and this is not just with us, of course, it's with all estate agents in Fife. So it's quite surprising that actually the East Nuke was at 5. But again, it's pretty steady. Whatever number seemed to come on, it almost is exactly what sells as well, isn't it, in the East Nuke?
But look at St Andrews. 11 versus 12. Now, St Andrews is top end of the market in terms of price point. And what I noticed there is St Andrews usually is the one every single week, and there's more coming on than has actually been sold. So that actually quite surprises me. It'd be interesting to see what the next week's like in comparison to this one. Because as I said, it typically is the other way around. Leadmouth, again, flipped round again. Last week it was a wee bit, it was more demand than actually supply. Now it's turned the other way. So 1 week, my managing director used to say to me every single time, Jim, 1 week doesn't make a trend.
No,
you have to wait and look at the other weeks in comparison and bring that in. And that's why we're going to look at the month as well. With Dunfermline's, even Stevens, Glenrothes, kind of 13-10, that's all right.
Pretty steady.
Kirkcaldy 30 versus 23. The Dunfermline and Kirkcaldy areas tend to be big hitters because they've got a huge amount of housing stock in these areas. I mean, Dunfermline's primarily KY11, KY12, Kirkcaldy's KY1, KY2 postcodes, so they've got big housing amounts in there, hence the reason they're quite big numbers. So in comparison-wise, when you look at it, for example, Leadmouth 9 versus 5, I mean, that's almost 50%. But you look at Kirkcaldy, that's actually still doing a lot better because Kirkcaldy is 30 versus 23, and 23 divided by 30 is 76%. See how that is? So on the face of it, actually looks like Leadmouth's doing better, when in actual fact, Kirkcaldy's doing better.
Correct. Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head as well with Dunfermline and Kirkcaldy, because in those areas as well, there's a lot of new builds going in there. So whilst actually the people come to market and maybe move into new builds, it does distort it a little bit, doesn't it? Because actually the new builds don't always get registered and sold. But actually, even with that in account, it's still performing quite strongly, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, final thoughts on this? What you're thinking? Maybe move on to the month and see how the month.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what the month's going to look like. To be honest with you, we're at the end of the month now, so let's have a look at that.
Let's flip it on for the month of March itself and see where we are right now with that. Now, see what I mean about this 1 week doesn't make a trend, because it looked like it was actually a huge oversupply, when in actual fact, 584 versus 543. There's only a 7% difference. And that is not a material amount in comparison
I think that
overall.
looks like a healthy picture, Jim.
It does. Well, considering there's people out there saying the market's going to crash, the market's crashing, the market's crashing, it's like that does not show a market crash at all. That shows quite a healthy market. In actual fact, if you take 584 and divide it by the 31 days, for example, that's 19 properties a day actually on the market. So 19 properties a day on the market. And then you look at 543 and divide it by 31, and then that's 17 and a half properties sold. So that's almost even Stevens overall. But see how I say the average is 20, 20 on, 20 off, and that tends to be where it is. That is an extremely healthy market. Regional wise, what's your thoughts on this?
I think regional wise, actually, the surprising one there for me, I think, is St Andrews, 46 versus 41, 8 to 9%.
Yeah.
That's healthy for St Andrews, isn't it?
It's usually down to 80.
Yeah, it's usually done that way. East Nuke is that performs almost 100% every month, though, doesn't it? From what we see, so that one's not a surprise.
Remember, East Nuke's a high price point now in comparison.
Yeah.
Over the uplift that's happened over the last 2 or 3 years. But it's interesting actually again to see that East Nuke is very, very buoyant.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think what's interesting, we saw the weekly one for Leavenmouth there, and it was at 50%, but actually the performance month overall is 95%. That's a steady, healthy market.
Yeah, it's almost spot on to what's been listed and what's been sold. Now, when we say what's been listed and what's been sold, we don't mean it's exactly the same houses listed and sold. What we mean is the number of properties actually listed, the number of properties sold are about even Stevens. But again, this shows a really good, healthy housing market overall.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think Kirkcaldy and Dunfermline, as you would imagine, they're the high hitters in what's being listed. But, we've explained the reasoning behind that. And that's because there has been a lot of new builds getting built in those areas.
You can see the same there when you look at Glenrothes, because Glenrothes is traditionally like for like as well. But you can see it's 83%. So there's another 11 properties. But then Glenrothes is doing quite a bit of new build with Springfield and Keep Moat, for example, building there as well. So and then up where the old Tillis Russell site is, they're starting to build up there. I think Campion's up there, and I think now who are their house builders? Barrett, possibly. I remember seeing a sign up there for them.
Yeah, I think Campion, Barrett, and there's another one. I can't remember now off the top of my head. Forgotten.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but yeah, a lot going on there.
Yeah, and final words on this. What's your thoughts, or will we move on for the year?
I think for me, actually, when you look at it, the 584 versus 543, yes, it's 40, but actually when you split that through 7 regions, on average, it's like 3.2 per region. Actually, that's not a massive amount. So it's pretty much an even spread, which I think is quite encouraging.
Yeah, definitely healthy. Okay, price point though, what are you thinking about? Price point, home report values, stuff like that, offers over, what's that market like? Are we still achieving significant amounts offers over? I mean, I had seen the last couple of weeks I've been doing this that is not the case right across Fife, and the fact is that property prices tend to be going round about the home report value, maybe just over, and maybe a wee bit more over. For the special ones that people really, really want, the one-offs that will probably never come back because they're classic family homes, and once they're gone, they're gone. They've got character to them as well, and these ones tend to go quite well in terms of the offers over value. But there is some properties right across Fife from other agents as well, actually going for under the value being asked.
There is, and actually we've got some examples of that today, Jim, when we get to that part of the discussion. I think what we're certainly noticing is, as well as the actual number of properties being listed and sold stabilising, we're seeing an almost stabilisation of offers over prices as well, aren't we? Because actually and that's not because the market is being hurt in any way. What we're seeing is actually the home reports now are reflective of the properties that we're selling at that boom. So by the time the keys get exchanged, then it gets registered with the land registry, and we look at the averages, that then benefits you now as a seller, because that sales in those areas have improved your home report price.
So what we're saying is that massive uplift that people thought they should be getting based on last year's figures has now been built into the figures that they've got now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But and in some instances, you know, you are getting the opportunity where some property can be bought for under the home report price, but we are still achieving over. And again, it depends, as you say, it depends on what it is that's being sold, where it is, you know, especially in this location where you've got your sea views, etc. Those types of properties do still seem to do well. It's just a balance, really, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, Dave Sleet actually says quite a good point. Another clear sign Fife is an oasis and the media presentation don't fit here. And yeah, I can't disagree with you, Dave. The reason behind that is primarily, and I had another discussion with someone else as well. They were saying it's the prices are way beyond what anybody can afford because there's 6 times the average salary. When in actual fact there should only be 3 times the average salary. Well, that's not accurately correct, and the reason for this. Now, the reason for Fife house prices should be round about 6 times the average salary is because when you're a first-time buyer starting off, you're not buying a house; it will be middle market. You're not buying the house; it will be the average of every single house in the market. That's usually your second house that you upgrade to. And it just so happens the first house that you've got secures your place on the housing market and goes up in value while you're potentially, maybe someone moves in with you and you become a couple and you have more earnings, therefore you can get a bigger mortgage or you can afford a bigger house. And that's what that's for. That's why the average is in between. So the average is 100 and almost 170,000 in Fife. So you've got properties above and below that, and you tend to find that the first-time buyers for the first time are actually buying houses round about 3 times the salary average. Now, 3 times the salary average, when you think about it in Fife, is round about the 100,000 mark, and that tends to be a first-time buyer territory, doesn't it?
It does, and a lot of first-time buyers as well. That, you know, we're seeing a lot of them moving into the upper apartments in the Levenmouth area, for instance, and you can get a fantastic upper apartment in Leven for around about the 80,000 mark. So you're right there; it's on average about the 3 times point.
Yeah, definitely. So the 6 times, just so people understand this, the 6 times is actually considered a healthy housing market. It's when it goes to 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 times. That's when you find that the market, in terms of the area, tends to be overheated as a result. Now, there's regional areas, hence the reason why I talked about St Andrews. If you take St Andrews in isolation and try to get the average price point, it's going to be a lot more significant than the average price point of all of Fife, because some areas of Fife are significantly lower, therefore that's why the average sits at 170, whereas St Andrews in its isolation, you know, itself, the average price point is going to be significantly higher to that. And that's why we expect St Andrews possibly to be a bit more supply than there is demand, because it's a higher price point and less affordable to people. But then again, that's down to a policy for the local housing authorities to actually consider social housing. But we'll not go down that route.
No, we'll leave that for today.
Because I'll get on my platform and start talking about the need for council housing getting built.
Step back from it, Jim. But I think actually that's a really good moment, actually, when you talk about St Andrews. Why don't we look at those annual stats then, Jim, and then get a feeling for what the annual stats look like? Because that'll give us a real good insight.
Okay, so here we go. Now, this is exactly, this painted the exact picture. Remember, I used to talk about every single time, there's about 6,500 properties that come into the market in Fife every single year on average. That number, 6,691, is the total properties actually come on, according to Rightmove. So this is the total right throughout the year and in its entirety. So 6,691 divided by 52, that's an average of about 128 a week. Now divide that by 7, and that's an average of 18 a day. That's the benchmark. That's the benchmark for a healthy housing market. Now, when we look at the 5,291 and divide that by the 52 and then divide that by the 7, we get an average of 14 and a half sold a day. Now, obviously, you can't sell half a house, but 18 and a half, 14 and a half, there's a 4 differential. So there's a wee bit oversupply there in terms of that. So 4 divided by the 18, so there's a wee bit oversupply, round about 20%. Oh, funny enough, it's 79% right there.
Exactly.
So you can see that. So the oversupply there. And so that's why when you look at the differential between the two of them, there's round about 6691 minus 5291 equals about 1,400. Now, if you take, there's also 1 in 10 people out of that 6691 usually put their house in the market, and then typically the statistic is 1 in 10 usually withdraw for some kind of reason. It's either they've changed their mind, they just don't want to sell anymore, or they've decided maybe, well, there's other things, there's factors like people get back together because they were wanting to sell their house, or they're maybe just testing the market, so they change their mind with that as well. So if you take the 9961 and multiply it by 0.9, which is the true value of probably what's actually on the market to be sold, is about 6,000 versus 5,291. Now, if you look at that, there's 800 of a difference here.
So what does that do to the percentage then, Jim, of what sold if we took it down to 6,000?
Well, if it was that, it was 5,291, and divide it by 6,000. Just say you're talking about 88%. But if you look at, and I'll quickly, and I'm not put the screen up, but you can look at this for yourself. So I'm reckoning there's about 800, and I'll look at Zoopla, and I'll do the Fife. I'll check Fife for Zoopla, and 887 on the market. There you go. There's the difference. So 887 properties on the market right now for the Fife area, currently available for sale right now. So that tells me there's the numbers are all adding up, and they're in the right sectors, and it's a very healthy housing market. Although if you've got 881, and when you think about it, there's 20 getting sold every single day, and bought every single day. So divide that by 20, you're roughly taking about 50 days.
Yeah.
And 50 days is roundabout coming up for what? 50 days divided by 7, well, 7 weeks, almost 2 months.
Yeah.
So this is why on average you take a property takes about 2 months to actually get an offer on it, not sold, but get an offer on it, and then it'll be another 3 months before it probably gets through conveyancing with a solicitor once the offer has been accepted. That's the key there. So it takes, on average, it would probably take about 5 months to sell a property. So if you're considering moving in the summer or into the autumn, then you're looking at April, May, June, July, August. So if you put your house on now, on average, you'll be completing in August.
Yeah,
and
it's really
roughly when the schools are going back. So if you're wanting to move in the summer, you better get your skates on.
Do you know, a lot of clients actually are being quite surprised by that calculation at the moment, because I've been out in the last couple of weeks to quite a few people who've said, don't know if I'm going to do it now, I'm thinking more towards the summer, we need to move.
So you'll be selling at Christmas then?
Exactly, and my response to that is, if you want to move in the summer, then you need to go now, if you're working on the averages.
But what if my house sells quick?
We
get this all the time, don't we? So
right,
let me answer that question. What if your house sells quick? Your house will never sell unless you agree to the sale value that you're accepting, and also the entry date as well. So unless these two criteria, which are the main criteria for you, are actually what you want, your house will not sell at that point in time, because it's your decision as a seller. So if someone comes along and says they want your house within 4 weeks, but they're paying you the right price, and you don't want to move in 4 weeks, you just say, that doesn't fit my criteria. I'll wait till the next person comes along and see what they want to offer. It's not just the first person past the post with the price. It's more importantly down to you as a seller to, and we would protect your interests anyway, because that's what we do. We manage, it's called managing the sale. In order to make sure everything fits in with what you exactly want. So if somebody wants to move in within 6 weeks because they've decided they're in a position, they're a cash buyer, and they want to move now, then you just say, well, you know, I'm actually looking for about around about July, August as my entry date. And if they can't accommodate that, then that's fine. We'll just wait for the next person to come along. So if you're a seller out there, or you're concerned about that, you don't need to agree to an offer just because it's the right price for you. You can actually say, no, that doesn't fit my criteria. But again, your estate agent should be able to tell you that, and be able to tell you and explain to you how they manage the sale process. That's the key here. Okay.
I think as well, the other way to look at that as well, though, Jim, is not just the fact that you can say no, but actually you may not necessarily need to say no, because if you explain the situation to the potential buyer, the buyer 9 times out of 10, that's their dream home. So they will wait. It's very rare that they'll turn around and say, well, I don't want it then if I need to wait longer. 9 times out of 10, they'll say, yes, I'll wait.
Yeah, I quite like what Dave said there. Accurate price and sustainable market flows protected by ethical and transparent property agents. Go Fife Properties team. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. I feel a bit embarrassed. We go even redder. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. But it is true, though, isn't it? It's accurate pricing. It's sustainable market flow. It's the key here is the health of the housing market is not about the property price. It's about the number of properties that are actually buying and selling within the property market. And I can't emphasize this so much. And the most important point of that is because it keeps a sustainable economy round about it going. If you're buying and selling 20 properties every single week in Fife, and say a contractor, for example, is, you know, everybody gets something done on their house, and say on average it's £10,000 on every single house. So you're literally injecting every person that's buying and selling that week. That in Fife, they're injecting £200,000 into the local economy, into contractors. If you're doing that for the whole year, you're multiplying that by 52. The people that are buying and selling in Fife are actually injecting 10.4 million in improvements and repairs and carpets, and so they're buying from B&Q, keeping people in jobs. They're buying for local contractors, getting them in to fit bathrooms and kitchens. So there's about 10 million being injected into the local economy. Now, this is why I talk about the health of the housing market, because if that dropped to 15, for example, every day, so it was only 15 buy and sell every day, it would be 15 times the 52. 15 times the 7 times the 52 is the 54 times the 10,000, and that ends up being significantly less than that. So that's why. So there's less money going into the economy because there's five less every single day. So if you have the 5 multiplied by the 52 multiplied by the 7 equals that, multiplied by the 10 equals that. Yeah, you're talking about probably about a million, 1.8 million there. So if you're doing quarter less, then you've got quarter of the 10 million. So you're losing 2.5 million injecting the economy into local contractors and businesses, who then go, okay, I can't buy as much materials from the local contractors or the local suppliers. Therefore, everybody then has to go, wait a minute, we'll have to downsize. That means jobs, doesn't it?
Yeah,
they can't afford something, therefore they have to cut back. And you can see the spiral, how it goes down. So you do definitely want a healthy transactional housing market. Now, what happens if that stays the same? But what happens if the property price changes? Well, absolutely nothing, because you're still in the house. And your house, if the property price changes, what happens if it goes down 10%, for example, on the house that you've got, the house that you're buying is going to go down 10% as well. So this is why I talk about just securing. All it does is secure your place on the housing market, on the property ladder, and hedges you against the fluctuations. If your house goes up 10%, the house that you're buying goes up 10%. Yeah. So you're just trading like for like. Now, there's a small differential between trading up and trading down in the price differences, but it's not an impact on the local economy, and it's not an impact on local jobs and businesses, because the transactional numbers are still there and people are still paying £10,000 to get their house refurbed on average. So hopefully that explains to people why it's the most important point for the housing market. The health of the housing market is on the number of transactions, not the property price. And the property price doesn't matter a jot when it comes down to buying and selling property, really, if it's only moving small amounts month by month. Because if you're living in that house for the next 5 to 20 years, for example, or 15 to 20 years, it's going to go up significantly more than what the year it had dropped. Right? I'll take a classic example here, Perry, just to emphasise that point. When I bought my house before the credit crunch, we bought it for 260. We spent 100,000 on it, so basically it was 360. The credit crunch came along, and immediately the price dropped to 300,000 because we lost 20% of the value. So it dropped to 300,000, and I could have gone, oh, I've lost money, but I've not lost money. I'm still in the same house right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the house now is worth 450,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it made no difference. And all the house did was, though, was secure my place on the property ladder, because the same thing happened to everybody else.
Exactly. It goes back to your opening statement, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that I sold the rent. Barney Rubble actually says, well done, Barney. Sold his house in a day. I hope you got the right price for it. But that's important, though. You sold it in a day, Barney. More than likely, you've agreed to the conditions in the entry date, which suits you. And that's why you sold your house in a day. Because if you didn't feel that either the price was right or the circumstances, in other words, entry date or the buyer's circumstances wasn't right, you wouldn't have accepted that offer, and therefore you wouldn't have sold it in a day. So you must have had all the right conditions to do that and to do that. So thanks very much for making that comment. It was good to emphasise that. Let's jump back to these annual figures again. Let's look at regional. So you break it down by region. Is there any surprises in there?
I think what's really jumps out is the fact that Leavenmouth has outperformed all the other areas, which in percentage terms, which I think's a bit of a surprise. But then there is a lot of affordable housing, isn't there?
I think Leavenmouth's always been a really good, stable market. They're all at good price points as well. And the one emphasises this as well is the investment going into Leavenmouth. There's over 100 million going into Leavenmouth over the next 2 or 3 years. And why I say that is there's 77 million with the rail track, which will be finished and completed at the back of Leavenmouth swimming pool in 2024, possibly towards the end of 2024, because there's a lot of work to do, and it could overrun, just spill into 2025, but that's okay. So there's a lot of good prospects for Leavenmouth. You've got about 10 million going into Silverburn for the regeneration of the flax mill. You've also got another 10 million which went into infrastructure improvements for the blueprint for the Leavenmouth rail link for people coming along. So in other words, you know, when people get off the train, what is there at Leavenmouth? And a lot of people out there right now go, well, what is there at Leavenmouth? Well, that's the whole point. So it's not just, it's about making sure we've got there's stuff in place in order to make sure that when people get off a train at Leavenmouth on a point of tourism, they've got somewhere to go and something to do. And the place looks nice. So that's why Leavenmouth is actually quite a buoyant market. But there, look, the revealing one here is when you look at the St Andrews one, look at it sitting at 68%. So 472, 319, and I think there's a differential here, and I think the big differential here is it's possible, because this is like this all the time, it's possible a lot of people actually just take their house off the market and decide not to do it in the St Andrews area, and possibly just rent them instead, because you know St Andrews is a big rental market. So while people want to sell, there's sometimes the objective about will I get the right return anyway, so I possibly might just end up renting it. So that's possibly where that is. East Neuk again, you could see there's a big difference there. But then again, we come back to saying there has to be some sort of oversupply there in order for the market to grow, in order for it to stabilise prices. And that's why prices have actually had to started to stabilise, because there's no this limited supply anymore.
Yeah.
Any other ones for you in here?
No, I think Dunfermline is exactly what we'd expect it to be, as is Kirkcaldy. The percentages are probably a bit skew-whiffed in those areas, because actually we're not seeing everything that is getting sold. Yeah, the new builds, you're not seeing those completed, so that does a little bit.
So, so what happens, and just to emphasise that for what you're saying there, Perry, so people understand that. So that's 773 there for Glenrothes. The new build builders go into Rightmove and they put their properties on Rightmove, but they actually don't put them as sold, so it doesn't register in here. And you know, I might look at these numbers later on and actually just strip them out and see what it's like, and maybe discuss it in another week. But that's why that number tends to be a lot bigger. So it could be this could be a lot less than what it is, and this percentage could be a lot higher. Therefore, it could honestly be almost like getting back to this like for like scenario in terms of where the market is right now. And that takes us nicely on then to the Zoopla property price. So I'd actually discussed this during the week, the Zoopla rental market. So the rental market is also another source for health. in terms of where things are. Richard and I discussed this during the week, the UK rental market and how important that is to a sustainable housing market as well. How there's been a lot more properties come on from the rental market to the sales market. The number of first-time buyers, for example, in Fife in the last 5 years has gone, well, the number of homes actually bought, homes over and above the usual in Fife has actually increased by around about 8,000 in Fife itself. The number of properties to rent in Fife has actually reduced in the last 5 years by about 1,200 properties. So there's less properties to rent in the market. There's more houses owner-occupied now in the market in Fife. So this is a bit different than what everybody's saying about the fact that all these investors are taking away. You know how the media is saying all these investors are taking all these properties to rent. It's like, no, they're not. There's a lot more coming back onto the market, and they're actually getting sold to people actually to live in. So again, a misconception overall. I think that's quite an important point. So that's another show. If anybody wants to just click on that link, watch the actual show or listen to the podcast. Do you want to look at sold numbers and that and talk about them?
So let's have a look at what we've actually sold this week. And again, it goes back to what we were saying there, Jim, about the timeline that it's taken. So this one here is Laverock Terrace at Glenrothes, sold in 2 weeks, as you can see. So I know we're talking about averages here. This fell out with the averages and actually was quite popular. This one was listed at offers over 130,000. And the new owners are really excited to be moving into their new project and their new home. But it just shows you actually what property in that area of that style is going for. So again, if anyone's got something like that they're interested in maybe
what type of house was this? Was this a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, or?
Yep, so this was a 2-bedroom, very spacious actually inside as well. So that was a great layout for the new people. So they were really excited to be moving to that.
Yeah, and that was at 130,000 2-bedroom.
130,
I tell you what, a 2-bedroom in Glenrothes at 130,000 is a really good price point. It's actually quite a high price point as well to Glenrothes. So Glenrothes is actually, the prices have actually gone up quite considerably over the last couple of years in the area. I mean, this typically maybe 2 or 3 years ago would be around about the 100,000 mark or just under.
It would be. It would be. So you can see that uplift in the prices as well. And then the next one we sold, Jim, if you want to pop that up there for me. And this was one that you had been in, Jim. So 20 Alan Robertson Drive in St Andrews. This one sold with us in 2 weeks. This was listed at offers over 180,000. The new owners, again, really looking forward to move in. They're relocating actually into the area. So again, there's a perception for St Andrews where it's all going out to rentals, but this is someone who's making it their permanent home.
I'll just pick you up on that. You said 180, that's the next one. This is 200.
Oh, sorry, 250. I beg your pardon. Offers over 250.
Wow. That in St Andrews for 180 grand. Wow.
250. Sorry, I beg your pardon. I was reading the wrong line there. So yeah, that came on for offers over 250.
Really good property. I love the fact that they had the off-street parking there with the double drive on the front and then close back garden. 3 bedrooms upstairs, nice big open plan living room and dining area front to back here, and then your kitchen, your standard kitchen off the side as you come in. So that's what I liked about that property. And again, as you said, sold in 2 weeks. A really great price point for St Andrews, isn't it?
It was a very good price point. Offers over 250.
Yeah. Okay. And the next one?
Yep. So the next one was 22 Station Road in St Monans. This one sold in 2 months. So again, it just shows you, the first two were 2 weeks. This was 2 months. Things just take a little bit of time in certain areas, depending on what it is. This was listed at offers over 180,000, as you rightly said, Jim, not the St Andrews one. And again, this was a property that you'd been in quite frequently as well then, Jim. So do you want to talk about what you thought was fantastic about this one?
2-bedroom, bathroom, open plan living room. You had your
really spacious inside.
You had your dining kitchen as well, was quite good. But what I liked about it was you were literally, this way, down the way. You were about 100 metres from the Fife Coastal Path in the harbour. I had to get the Fife Coastal Path in there somewhere. next to the Fife Coastal, walking distance to Fife Coastal Path. Most people are renowned for keeping saying the Fife Coastal Path. I must be their biggest promoter in the whole of the world.
It's either the Fife Coastal Path or beautiful sea views.
Yeah, and this kind of sea views. You can actually look right down out of that window here. That's the living room window there, and you can actually sit and look and just watch the world go by as people walk back and forward. I think that's what I liked about it. So ideal property for someone.
It's on a good part of the location,
yeah.
wasn't it?
So took a wee bit longer to sell. Lower flat as well, which was good for the fact that I loved the fact about in here you had this big hall as you went in. So and almost, I think I've got a funny feeling that it was almost like barrier free. So you could get up here and just straight into the front door if you're in a wheelchair access or that, and leave your wheelchair and then, you know, get through all the different rooms. So I think that was a really good plus point about that one as well.
It was.
Again, offers over 180,000 now. A couple of years ago, that would be sitting at 140, 130.
Yeah.
So for anybody out there considering, because there is people out there, this was a holiday home previously. So this was a holiday home previously, and that's why this person, that is a good price point for them, because that is securing a return for them on their investment now. Because it's not one they sold in, so they're not trading like for like. They're actually just exiting the market, and someone else is taking this over.
That's exactly what's happening with that, Jim. Let's tell people what's coming to the market with us. So we've got some coming soon as well. Yep. So we've got some coming soon. So this one I've been in. I'm actually going to be doing the pre-portal towards the end of next week. So it's 1 Bray Head Approach Row in East Reims. It's a 3-bedroom end terraced house. Don't be fooled. This is a huge plot. It's right on the corner. They've got fantastic garden grounds, off-street parking. They've totally renovated. I would say they've renovated 3/4 of the property. Fantastic big kitchen as well. Good with a big island, new utility rooms, 4-piece bathroom with a freestanding bath. It's just absolutely stunning. So really looking forward to showing people what that one's going to be looking like.
The one for me, this is actually quite an unusual one, because you don't get, because of the area, it's very rare that these properties actually come up at Charlottetown and Cooper. So this is a 3-bedroom detached bungalow that's coming on next. So watch out for that one. So if you're looking for a bungalow, and now Charlottetown is the other side of the A92 from Ladybank. So right across the other side of the Ladybank, Charlottetown's on the other side of that on the A92. And it's a cracking 3-bedroom detached bungalow. I keep saying it, hen's teeth every single time. Bungalows are very, very rare. You don't get them very often. Once they're gone, they're gone. And a lot of people want to downsize the bungalows. So the key here is, and the reason that we're telling you this, just so everybody understands, the reason that we're telling you this is, so if you're looking for these types of properties in these types of areas, then you need to register with us. If you're not registered with us, you can message us direct on this broadcast, or you can send us an email at info@fifeproperties.co.uk, or you can just contact any of our office sales numbers. Now I could deal off 01333 421 774, 01592 75 2000, and 01334 65 42 21. So these are, and you can get them on our website on the bottom as well. Next one. What are you thinking in this one? Bray Head?
Bray Head Road in Pittenweem. So that's a 2-bedroom semi-detached house. So again, those are quite rare when they come up, and they're generally quite spacious as well. They're usually good sized rooms, aren't they, Jim, in that area?
Bray Head's just around the corner, just walking distance. Again, Fife Coastal Path. You can't deny that, can you?
That you can't.
That to me is the biggest thing. Is the biggest attraction to what I would say is a lifestyle choice, because it's easy access then to walk along to Anstruther. So Anstruther is only a couple of miles up the road. The great thing you've got about Pittenweem is you've got the West Breeze project, which is the open water swimming pool. You've also got a great community feel. You've got the bowls as well. You've got a fantastic primary school in Pittenweem. Easy access over the hill to St Andrews, and then you can also go just back along to St Monans. So and then further on from St Monans on to Ely. So you've almost got the best of everything in your position. East Wales is renowned for crafts and arts. So if you're an artist, if you're into your crafts or anything like that, that is the place to be. They have a crafts fair, a big meet every single year in the Pittenweem area.
Definitely.
So 2-bedroom semi-detached house will be very popular, I would say.
It will be popular. And there's one that's not on here actually, that I've actually got coming to market in Lethem on Monimail Road. this is a terrace property, 3 bedrooms, absolutely stunning, fantastic countryside location, great front garden, great back garden, really spacious inside, lovely big dining kitchen. It's a cracker, and I'm looking forward to everyone seeing that one
You
as well.
did the pre-portal on that, and I tell you
I
what,
did.
there was quite a lot of interest in there. You know, I
There is.
remember actually dealing with some of these messages, and it's still getting put out just now. It's still
Mm-hmm.
retargeting the right audiences and getting in front of the right people. And I
Definitely.
definitely think that'll be very, very popular. A fair bit of land with it as well. Eh?
There it is. It's a huge garden. You've got off-street parking at the front, off-street parking at the back. There's a garage as well. It's just gorgeous. Countryside views, no matter which window you look out of. It's really stunning.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the completed?
Yep. So completed. We've got a 2 Scooney
Crescent and
Crescent.
Leaving.
Oh gosh, I love this one. Oh, if only. So 2 Scooney Crescent and Leaving. That was a 3-bed semi-detached house, and that was another one that did really, really well on the pre-portals as well, and got a lot of traction early doors. And that sold in 2 weeks. It sold for 5.7% over the home report. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Jim. You know, people are still getting good prices over the home report, and the difference that was for the client, that was an extra £12,000 for our client, which was fantastic.
And it does make a big difference to them moving on. It gives them a better choice about what they want to do.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, Scooney's all very, very popular here. You know, there is this misconception every single time. Oh, my house will sell. My house will sell quick.
Yeah.
Absolutely, your house will sell quick. However, what price will it sell for? That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing it should be. When an estate agent comes in to see you, because they do say, oh, my house will sell quick, and that's fine. And so I'll just go for the cheapest agent on the block. And it's like, okay, yes, it will sell quick. But what agent actually gets significantly more over the home report value? And what is that percentage in percentage terms, and also in monetary value? And what's the average price point? And then what I mean by that is, for example, just as we've said now, Scooney Crescent and Leaving, 3-bedroom semi-detached house, it was home report was 210,000. It went for £12,000 more. So that's the most important thing. So the key here is how much more did it go for over that amount? And literally it was 6%. Now it went for 6% over the home report value. But I've got a funny feeling if you ask most estate agents right now, they will be saying to you that, you know, most houses will not go over the home report value. They'll be round about that, or 1 or 2% over. So the differential there and the percentage is almost about another £10,000, as opposed to what the normal average is that we've managed to achieve. That's why the most important point is know how many houses you sell in the area, or what's your cheapest fee, because it's like the difference between one fee and another could be 500 quid. But if you've got an estate agent which consistently achieves £5,000 more than another estate agent on average, then that's a no-brainer. You should be choosing the one that achieves the more at the end. You shouldn't be choosing the cheapest chips.
No,
but
I agree.
A lot of people don't understand that, and hopefully I've got that message across. I'm an accountancy background, so it's all about rent, it's all about rate of return, it's all about cost-benefit analysis. Cost-benefit analysis is how much does it cost me to sell, and what is the benefit I get at the end? And the bigger benefit you get at the end versus the cost to sell extra outweighs every single time. That's the one you should go with.
I would agree.
That's just me personally, with being an accountant.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
You want to speak to Tolbooth Wine was another one.
Yeah, Tolbooth Wine, that was a stunning one in Cellardyke, wasn't it? The sea views from this, I mean, literally, you could jump out the window and land in it. It was gorgeous. And that was a 2-bedroom terraced house. That sold in 5 weeks, which we were quite surprised about, that it took a bit longer. But actually, that was a resale. So we kind of sold that one twice, didn't we? Which is why it looks like it took longer. That one sold for
then you've said quite an important point. That's a resale, and that sold twice. So it sold twice, but it wasn't a case of just running back to put it on the market. It was a case of just going to the other people in line that was lined up. Correct. And then just getting someone else that we had before. So the key here out of good estate agency is to make sure that, okay, you've got the house sold to someone and we've got a deal, but you always have someone else in the background just in case that doesn't happen. So at least the continuation, because then what happens is when your seller gets their house sold and they then make their plans to buy their next house and it's agreed, it's like if that other person then pulls out or it falls through, you better make sure you've got another iron in the fire.
Have a plan B.
and a plan B. Well,
Yeah.
actually, just another plan A, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't believe in plan Bs. I just have another plan A. It's like, this is positive expectation every single time. So you make sure you've got someone else in that plan A position where it can just step in and keep the continuation of the expectations of the seller for the next steps that they're going on in their journey. People don't generally pay me to sell their house. They pay me to solve their problems. That's where my added value lies.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think that's what it's all about. It's about helping people on their journey, isn't it? And it just happens to be that it's a house that associates it with it.
This brings me on nicely, and I'll talk about this one, Toll Park Station Road in Buckhaven. Geez, this was a mountain to climb. This was an ex-buy-to-let property. I mean, it's a low-value property, but it was above commercial shops, and there was a big difficulty anybody getting a mortgage for this. So it was continually difficult to get someone to get over the line, and we had a number of buyers lined up for this over the years. And they just couldn't get to that next steps. And the reason for that was because lenders changed their criteria. And by the time it was getting to the yes, we're okay now, it's like, oh no, they've changed their mind. They're not going to do over commercial property. So it was that difficult. So this took quite a bit. And again, this was one of the ones which was actually just under the home report value as well. So, but it was low value. You know, this was £54,000, this 2-bedroom upper apartment. But as I said, it took a wee bit longer than usual. So it depends on what type of property it is and where it is and who it'll appeal to and how the mortgage companies deal with that situation. And that's our job to try and get that over the line as well. I mean, strictly speaking, we shouldn't really be dealing with mortgage companies and solicitors and stuff like that, because, you know, once your house is sold, it's like we've done our job. But it's again, this is this added value thing that we talk about, is the fact that our job is to solve the problems. And it's often the problems that other people have are outside of our realm or outside of the scope of what we're meant to do, but we will step in to do that for that reason.
Sometimes you just need to get it across the line, don't you?
Yeah, and owners happy with their new home. Perfect. It's probably a first-time buyer or somebody that's maybe just looking for a place to stay. Maybe they're separated. I don't know. That's what typically happens sometimes. So it's an ideal price point for them. Ticks all the boxes. It's over the 50,000 mark, so it makes it easy for a mortgage as well. Next one, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so Sandy Craig Road in Pittenweem, that was a 2-bedroom detached bungalow. Again, that was a really nice property in a fabulous location, actually, in Sandy Craig, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That one's,
Wow.
I know.
How long did it take to sell then?
It sold in 3 weeks. But our client obviously was very happy with that 3 weeks time period, because we actually ended up selling it for her for 11.6% over the home report price.
Yeah, and this was quite interesting, because when I went to first see this client, and I'll tell people the story about this, they actually didn't believe that they would go for that valuation. And they didn't actually believe that home report value would be achievable in their mind. But I actually showed them all the comparables and says, there's all the information, there's all the evidence and everything like that. And you're right, it actually didn't go for the home report value. It went for 35,000 more.
Absolutely.
That's what we're paid for.
That, and there lies the difference.
And a perfect new family home. So we talk about this all the time. There's a lot of animosity about people buying holiday homes in East Neuk, but perfect family home for someone.
Absolutely.
So that's what we want. That's really what we want. People to be living in the community, working in the community, and being part of the community overall in each area.
Yeah, absolutely. Fortherfield in Fruquet as well. That was a 3-bedroom semi-detached bungalow. Again, a great location, good downsizing property. The new owners, that's exactly what they were doing. So they were delighted to be moving there. They're now making that their permanent home. And that one, we sold that one for 158,000. So the client was delighted with the outcome of that.
And again, took a wee bit longer than average to sell.
It did take a bit longer than average. But again, it was a very particular house, wasn't it? And that particular buyer just didn't come along until that point.
I think the biggest challenge was the size of the rooms. Well, it was a 3-bedroom. The size of the rooms were a bit smaller than usual. They're a bit more compact, I would say. There's an estate agent's word. Compact
and bijou.
So yeah, absolutely. So that was it. So technically, you could say it's really, if you took the stud partition away, because that was the good thing, you could take a stud away, and you could basically have really two good size double bedrooms, two good double bedrooms. So essentially a double bedroom, but they had the option to split it into three with the stud partition in between.
But actually, the owner at that time, though, that third bedroom, they were using that as a dressing room, which was fantastic for them.
That's what I was just about to say. So it was perfect for a dressing room for the person, and that's all they needed. And I liked the living room; it was quite nice, and the big window at the front was quite nice as well. And the great thing is they had taken the original garage away, and they'd actually made a bigger garage, so you could essentially get your car and you could have a workshop at the back of the garage. And the garden was nice as well, and sat in the sun most of the day.
Yeah, it had a lot to offer.
And it's in Fruki. Fruki's really nice. You just,
I know.
I mean, easy access on the A92. You're up to Dundee. You're back across the Kirkcaldy, Glenrothes. What more could you ask for? It's
Exactly.
ideal, and it's a brilliant wee area.
And that pretty much was it in regards to what completed, Jim. So what have we got coming up, actually, Jim? So we've got the Wealth Creation Show tomorrow. I know you're in Spain, but you're still going to be doing that at slightly different time tomorrow.
We'll just finish off here then. So Wealth Creation Show, Richard and I is going to be talking. This is based on all my experience, why I've managed to get from homeless, unemployed to financial freedom and all the rest of it, where I am today in terms of wealth creation. So I'm actually, Richard and I have put again the 7 laws of wealth creation. So we've got 7 laws of wealth creation to talk about tomorrow, and we'll be live at 12:30. Now, it's going to be on my personal profile, it's going to be on my public profile, it's going to be on our YouTube channel, it's going to be Twitter, it's going to be on Instagram, we're going to be streaming on TikTok as well. We're also going to be streaming on, we will share it to the office pages, but technically our Wealth Creation Show isn't really part of Fife Properties as such. It's just information for investors, for people that want to build wealth over time. Now, when I talk about wealth, I talk about everything, from scratch. Remember, you've got to start somewhere. So where I started was the homeless unemployed. So everybody out there that sits and says, oh, well, that's no for me then. It's like, okay, but that's where I started. And
I think for me, what's really interesting about that program as well that yourself and Richard do is that it's about wealth and it's about creating that, but I think actually it's also about the kind of mental journey as well, which I think actually quite a few of the listeners and the people that are reading and listening to the podcast will actually find hugely beneficial as well.
Most of it's combating up here. Because we're consistently told when we're younger by our peers, they don't realise they're doing it, is when you say, I'm going to be president of the United States, it's like they go, that's no for the likes of us.
You're not going to.
Whereas people in America tend to go to their children, yeah, you could be president of the United States. In Britain, we just go, nah, that's no realistic, pal. But genuinely, we'll laugh at that, and it's like it's true. We actually tend to do that, and we try to. We're dare I say we're very pessimistic, in the way we look at and encourage the youth and our younger people. And I think this is what this is all about. It's up here. It's combating this, and then there's obviously overcoming things, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow on the 7 laws of wealth creation, and the fact that everybody's got it is the imposter syndrome. It's like I really deserve the success when you get it, and how to combat that, how to handle that, and also the other one is the wee voice at the back of your head when you go, I'm going to achieve something, and then this wee voice kicks in and goes, come on, be realistic with yourself. Do you think you're really going to achieve that? We've all got that, we've all got that voice.
It's that little person comes up on your shoulder, don't they?
My voice is called Bubbles, and now and again I tell Bubbles to shut up and mind its own business. But literally, I've named it because we all have it. Everybody's got it. It's just how to handle it and how to understand that and overcome it. And this is why we're going to talk about the 7 laws of wealth creation. So we're not technically talking about making loads and loads of money. What we're doing here is we're actually teaching people to overcome their mindset and to almost lift that lid off the jar and jump out. Now, when I say lift the lid off the jar and jump out, I'll tell you a classic analogy, a story about what I mean by that. You've all known the flea circus when we used to go to these things. We used to see it on television. We used to see it on Paul Daniels, where the guy would have the flea circus. And we used to think, oh, like, and they would have the wee bike and the fleas, and some of it was all pretend. It was Michael Bentin's potty time and stuff like that. But it was genuinely flea circuses. And people actually trained fleas to do certain things and just jump on it and stuff. But how they trained the flea is to jump only so high is they put them in a jar and they put the lid on top of the jar. And what happened was the flea started to jump. Now a flea can jump 3 feet high, but it was only 6 inches. So eventually the flea works out, wait a minute, I'm getting a headache here. And then it only jumps so far to stop, and just a micron, from the actual lid itself, and it stops short, so it doesn't hit its head. So it only jumps. So the flea learns to jump just under 6 inches because that's the way the lid is, and so it doesn't hit its head. So that's what it does. Then what happens is when they take the lid off the jar and take the flea out, the flea has taught itself only to jump under 6 inches. It no longer jumps there at 3 feet anymore. It's stopped. It's trained to jump that height. That's how you condition them. So that's what happens. Now, I'll give you an analogy here now. So that's daddy flea. They do the same to mummy flea, right? And the next minute, what happens out of that is mummy and daddy have a child together. Mummy and daddy's only jumping 6 inches high now. Baby flea is born. Baby flea can jump 3 feet. Baby flea can jump 3 feet, but baby flea observes mummy and daddy jumping just under 6 inches. So what do you think baby flea learns?
Jump 6 inches.
6 inches, and that's all. Baby flea has no idea that it can jump 3 feet. And this is. Does this sound familiar with how we are trained as children? And what we see round about us? And how we're only told that's no for the likes of us. What makes you think you're so special? Shut up and sit in the corner. These sort of things. We've all had it, myself included. And this is what the 7 laws of wealth creation is all about, as well as. So once you get across that mindset, once you understand how to break free of that, and once you understand how to jump that high, that's when you begin to learn how to develop wealth, how to acquire money, how to up your skills, and that's what happens. So that's why this is what this is all about. So we'll talk about that tomorrow on the Wealth Creation Show, Richard and I. It's live at 12:30. We say to everybody to ask questions, make comments, and what we say to them is we'll cover all these questions and comments at the end, but we'll go through the main show just now. It'll give everybody an idea and stimulation to think about and what questions to ask as well. And then we'll go through the questions at the end, and job done. And hopefully, it's a rising tide lifts all ships. Now, what the Wealth Creation Show does, it reinforces my beliefs, okay, and it keeps me there. Repetition is the mother of all skill. Repetition is the mother of all skill. Look at Ed Sheeran when he first started singing. He was rubbish. And he says that. He even shows it. He even plays it on shows like Jonathan Ross and that. He says, that's what I was like when I first sang. And it's totally off key. Look at Ed Sheeran singing now. Repetition is the mother of all skill. Think about that. Why do you think people are Olympic athletes? They had to learn to run sometime. So they had to start somewhere. They probably started at couch to 5K. Literally. And then from 5K to 10K. And then from 10K to a half marathon. And then from half marathon to a marathon. That's how it's done. That is the lifting the lid. Understanding you could get more, you could learn more, you could understand more. You begin to think out of that and think out of what you were stuck in, this almost impossible vessel that you couldn't get out of. The lift is now lifted, and you now are able to jump out, and that's what we're trying to teach tomorrow. So tune into that 12:30 tomorrow, and we'll learn all about that. Final word, Perry.
I think it's been a really educational show as always, Jim. Lots of good tips and hints there on how to kind of
get your property sold in the best way that you can. If anyone's out there and they're needing some help and further guidance on that, then feel free to message us directly. We're happy to help.
Perfect. And thank you very much, Dave, for your comments. Exactly, Perry. Psychological building blocks that Jim shows are phenomenal. Thank you very much again. I wish you'd stop. See, look at the imposter syndrome. Look at what I'm just doing. I feel embarrassed. Why is that? Think about that. And yet somebody's given me a compliment. You should just say thank you very much and leave it at that.
And that's a very good way to end the show, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's us. Okay, see you tomorrow, Wealth Creation Show. Bye-bye for now.
See you later. Thanks. Bye.